guys talk about this non-stop. Is the Y button as epic as they say?
Oh no,
The
it's
Y
gone
button?
again.
No, I did that. I did that.
Oh,
It's
God.
gone epic.
I think as soon as, like, the first game I played, well, I'm used to it, because I'm just like you, we've been playing Gears for 6 years, we're used to the D-pad. I kept messing up. I kept hitting the D-pad to switch weapons, and then Quinn would smack me in the head and say, "What are you, a fucking idiot?" Hit the Y button. So
I was doing that at E3, I was fucking up.
yeah, but once you get used to the Y button, the fact that you can switch weapons while running, the fact that it's so fast, it felt right.
Yeah, for someone that
I don't
definitely
know.
is.
Okay.
Oh, no, go ahead, Lauren. You go first.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say button layouts like don't phase me at all because they're just buttons, right? You get used to button layout, that's fine.
Well, the
I'm more
problem with
interested in the key mechanics, how things are different.
Yeah, the problem with the D-pad though is that everybody's done it. You know, you're running to switch a weapon, you smash left, and it gives you your smoke.
Smoke, yeah.
That's the
And I love when that happens. When you're just sitting there like, fuck, did this just really happen? And then you're dead.
Yeah.
That's how I'm going because the D-pad is it's inconsistent.
But that's not Epic's fault, though. That's Microsoft's fault.
Right.
Oh, yeah, that's just, you know, it's a flaw because it's something they want to do, but because of the controllers, it doesn't work all the time.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's something like, yeah, with that, you know, and you see people like asking for the old, can I have the classic control scheme? Can we have a classic control scheme? And it's like, man, after playing Judgment, you don't want to play Gears 3 because you know, like, that doesn't feel right, almost. Like, that feels bad. And it's like, man, you just don't even know. It's just, yeah, the control scheme is just something I don't understand at all for people to be upset about. Now, the other thing that people are kind of freaking out about is the on-screen reticle.
That actually, to me, was one of the most least significant things of anything to be worried about. At least I think.
You know,
Yeah.
you don't even notice it at first when we were
Yeah,
playing.
you don't.
Yeah.
No, you don't. You almost like look right past it.
Even on like the street gameplay, when I was watching the street gameplay, like most of the time when he's walking around, he's running around. I don't know if you guys noticed, but on the recent gameplay, the cursor automatically fades away, and then it comes back only when you're about to either L trigger your gun or you're walking around as if you're trying to blind fire your weapon. Then it assists you a little bit, but when you're actually using it, I mean, it's the same thing as always. You either hit your shots or you get killed. That's it. You know, I out of anything to worry about, I feel like that's one of the last things, in my opinion, to be paranoid about. You know, matchmaking, weapon balancing, things like that. Maps designed for specific game types, you know, so that Quinn spoke a lot about how, with the maps, and of course, I know you guys can't really comment on this. I haven't seen anything public about it yet. But, you know, you can't have a map that's made for Horde work for something that's supposed to be, well, what was, I guess, Execution or something like that. You would have to have smaller close-quarter maps for games built specifically for multiplayer, whereas games that are built for, you know, Overrun, Beast Mode, or, well, I guess Beast Mode is Overrun, or Horde, things like that, you know, you got to fit all those big creatures in big spots, you know?
Right.
You got to have bigger hallways and things like that. Quinn spoke with us about that on Active Reload back in the day. So, I mean, if we see those types of things included, I mean, I'm a huge supporter then. That we've already gotten some major weapon balancing done. Like, we were speaking about, whatchamacallit, the things that were great. The one thing that we haven't touched that I think is awesome, and I'm going to speak about it, you know, a little bit because it did affect me in Gears 3. Nades are balanced now. So all 3 grenades seem like the blast radius is weaker, they're not overpowered, inks don't stun anymore.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, to me, that's just awesome. That directly affected one of my placings at one of my events last year. So, and I got dominated. So, it's not my rant.
I don't know if I don't think we could talk about weapon balance yet. I don't know yet. I don't know if we can because the game is not out.
Really talk about weapon balance.
It's hard for us to talk about that, but
Yeah. That's
They're
the
gonna
only
tweak
one that
that.
I've seen.
the grenades were interesting. I'll say that much. They were interesting. Now, I just want to address this because this guy is always negative. He's Mr. Negative. Video Fletcher. All right, first, he came in. He feels like this is a promote Gears Judgment stream. Now, if you came into the stream earlier when I started the stream, I actually said the things that I didn't like about it and the issues that I think people are going to have a problem with, that I have a problem with. One of them is the loadouts. I don't like the loadout system that much. Skyless doesn't like the loadout system. I don't think it's great to be there. I'd rather have what we were used to because it seems like they could have still done that. But you know, I get with the I think it's part of the control scheme actually, because you have to switch with one button between two weapons. They didn't want to make it switching between three, because that's more like a PC thing. And I just don't think there's enough buttons for it on the controller. But that was one of the things I talked about. The other thing I didn't like was that there's 3 snipers. That doesn't make any sense to me. That's fucking dumb. It's dumb. Like, it's flat out dumb. I don't like that. I wasn't a fan of the Marxa. I'm still not a fan of the Marxa. I don't even see a need for there to be a Marxa, because you have the breach shot and the long shot. So that aspect of it is kind of ridiculous to me. The other thing I don't really care for is it's kind of a mix of some of the weapons. Maybe like there's just too many options, I guess. So it's like you don't know what you're going to need unless you play the map, and then you're like, oh, this map is fast paced. Let me try a Nasher out, and then you're like, oh, that doesn't work. Oh, well, this game, I need to try out my Lancer, and this might work. And it's like, you got to kind of get a feel for all the maps before you can decide what you want. The Nasher is very consistent because there's no active reload. So you cannot, I mean, you can still hard aim people, but you cannot, like, dominate them from a long distance. And that's answering another question. So I don't know how you guys felt about that, Puka and Rob, but that was my kind of general feeling after, like, we played Library, was it? And that felt like a classic Gears map.
Yes.
And then
how Library played. I got to play attacks.
You said you liked it?
I like Library.
Okay, yeah, that felt like classic Gears. And then we played Gondola, and I was like, this is not classic Gears. So that was like the difference between that. And then Street, from a free-for-all standpoint, there's some spots in that map that I didn't like, just to be honest. And it was basically because of Rob using the sawed off.
Way to go, Rob.
I went there with a mission to make the competitive players hate me severely, and I succeeded 100%.
Yeah.
No, but like he said, he said the things he didn't like. Streets, we played free-for-all on it, and again, there are some parts where, yes, you can piss off a lot of people in certain little corners. Like little, you saw on the video, right? There's like little streets, little alleyways you move around between the 3-4 buildings and the rooftop. On top, it's awesome. That's just a little battle trying to take the center building. Now, streets, you're risking your ass 24/7 while you're down there. There's no safety when you're on the streets, unless you happen to be the one hiding, like I was. But the map Library discussed, that was felt really good. Free-for-all mode. There's so many different areas. The videos they showed like little hidden spots you could go hide out, pick up some special little power weapons and straight battling, but never did I ever feel. I'm just going to talk straight with the basics. National versus Lancer. Everyone playing like Gears 3, you just lance a whole team and then you win the world because you're the greatest Lancer.
Yeah.
Well, in this one, even in the long stretches of hallway, I never felt scared or intimidated by a Lancer. I would just slide around or roll and get away, because without the stopping power, you can push and you can be aggressive and you can slap people in the face against a lot of these weapons.
I agree.
I also want to point out. Sorry, let me know when you're done.
No, you go ahead.
I want to point out, like Arctic already mentioned, that when you choose a weapon in free for all, you're choosing to have a rifle, and your secondary is always going to be a pistol. So if you choose a rifle, you're going to be a lot weaker in close quarter combat against other people.
Right.
Because of this, a lot of people don't start out with rifles. They won't. Especially when you're playing a map like Gondola, or somewhere that there's a lot of close quarter combat, you wouldn't put yourself in that situation right off the bat. So it just kind of depends on how people are going to play the game. But I think right now everybody's thinking that the game is going to be rifle dominant because they're thinking of Gears or Judgment as Gears or 3 is, and it's not.
Well, yeah, it's hard to think of anything just because we haven't been given much. That's the problem. Like, the people on the outside, like, we've only been given so much to base it on, and I mean, we've been given Overrun and free for all. I mean, those aren't really two game types where you can really judge how the game's going to play at all.
Right.
Yeah.
DBNO being gone. I mean, we got to see an actual game type. That's the problem. Like, if there is execution, if there is King of the Hill, if there's a TDMC, whatever it is, we'd have to see like one of those being played to even see how it works.
And even specs on weapons, you know, just seeing what types of weapons seem balanced enough that, you know, talking in the competitive aspect that we can even use, you know, and then in regards to, you know, matchmaking, hopefully like these maps are, you know, done really well, and then the system's really good, because I mean, when you look at it, negatives, what do we have? DBNO being on classifies as negative. You know, you spoke about the loadout Arctics. You know, 2 weapons, am I correct? Either a Lancer or a Rancher for your first spawn, and then your second one's always a pistol, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, with that, there's 2 different sides of the coin. The first side of the coin is that, okay, well, if I'm playing a competitive match, then probably every single guy I'm fighting against on the other team isn't going to spawn with a Lancer. So I'm not going to feel like I'm going to just get rained down by Lancers the whole time. There's some people that might try to be a close range type of player, where somewhere else might try to be, you know, a far range type of player. You know, it's going to be interesting. Can I say if it's going to be good or if it's going to be horrible? No, I haven't even touched the game yet. It's hard to say, but just analyzing it and looking at it, you know, it definitely is going to be a lot different than what we're used to, for sure. I mean, no execution, that's different. A negative, I guess for me, I would classify that as a negative. And then I think I said pretty much everything else. Really just the weapon balancing is what I'm really worried about, like the hammer burst specifically. Like if that 6-shot hammer burst is pretty balanced and that's usable for us, I think that would be huge. Maybe Quinn and the other guys would be happy we could do something else.
Yeah, I mean, this was at E3, this was a while ago, obviously, but when I played it, and that was way back then, it was balanced pretty damn good. And I only played it in Overrun, but I'm assuming the gun works the same in every game type. But, you know, but when I used the hammer burst, pretty much if you shot anything over 3 shots, you were shooting at the clouds.
Oh.
You had to shoot 3-shot bursts in time, and you couldn't spam it like a machine gun like you could in the past 2.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you know,
I mean,
Gears 3 especially when you aimed in, you could sit there and spam your right trigger.
Yeah, it didn't even move. And the problem was you could even like hip fire it, and it still shot right down the middle. It's like, that's why we couldn't use anything. That's why when I played Judgment at E3, I was like, oh wow, they already got this. This is gone. That's gone. Okay, let's go.
Mhm.
Someone said the stream died, but it's still up for me.
Stream died. Twitch has been weird the past week.
Yeah, it's still up for me,
Everyone's
guys.
just trolling in the stream. They're like, Quinn killed the stream. Guys,
Wish there was more we could actually say though, but until Epic.
Yeah. So there was a couple questions I saw in stream that I wanted to answer, but let me see if I can find them.
there was one I could try to scroll back. I thought it was pretty interesting. I should have copy and pasted it in a notepad or something for Office.
Oh, I remember.
I just copy pasted one into the chat if you read it. It says, do you guys really think this game's multiplayer-wise transitioned well into competitive play?
That's a great question, but we have very limited intel to say that answer. That's the only thing.
That's
I can't really tell. I mean,
at least for me, Kenny, and I'm guessing Lauren. Well,
Yeah.
Lauren, you played it a little bit, so
until they release information about game types, I'm pretty much stuck saying, yeah, Overrun is good for competitive play. Yeah, I mean, it does have a lot of potential, but that's all I can really say because that's the only team-based game type that they've announced. So, I mean, I can't say anything on that, or else I would. I remember the question that came up, and all of you guys have played at least some level of competitive play. There's always this discussion on the game is rifle heavy, right? It's too rifle heavy. Where's my Nasher? Now, for anyone in the competitive scene, can you guys tell me how gameplay played out 99.9% of the time?
Rifle.
In Gears 3?
And Gears 3, Gears 2, Gears 1. At the end of Gears 1.
Gears 3 and 2, there was a lot of rivals.
At the end of Gears 1.
Well,
Insanes.
When the Insanes did their whole like Team Lancer thing, it changed a lot, but it was still able to mix a lot. Like if you were an aggressive team and you knew how to use smokes, you were able to break their stuff and get in their face. Like that's what I remember from back then. And then Gears 2, it changed a lot, and the rifles became ridiculous.
Yeah.
So, Gears 3 with the active reloads being so ridiculous and the Lancer being strong, and then we couldn't even mess with the other rifles. I mean, it it became a lot of Lancer play, especially in King of the Hill.
So yeah, I mean that's something that always bothers me is that some reason there's this like thought that the game should be so Nasher heavy, and it's like for competitive play, 99.9% of the time both teams are using the hell out of their rifles. So it's like, what are you guys talking about? I mean, I get in the pub sense, like you don't want people spraying you down like they were doing in Gears 3 like crazy.
I gotta say, that's like map design too.
And yeah, part of it is map design as well, but it's like it's always been like that. It's always been like that.
I think back in like, I'm not saying Gears 1 was perfect. There are some things that I think Epic has done that have improved dramatically over each Gears game. For example, the movement, sticking on walls, things like that. Like that was horrible back in GAL 1. But the one thing that I thought they did really well was I thought the weapons were really well balanced. When you looked at the competitive teams, the best, 4 teams probably at the end of Gears 1, who would you say? In my opinion, my personal opinion, the 4 teams I probably would mention would be Infinity, Insanes, Frag D, and Retaliation, in my opinion. At the end of this, like, 2008 era, I guess you could say, like towards like that Dallas time.
That'd be nice if my team showed up to Nationals.
Yeah, well, you guys didn't, but you still won an event and still did well through the course of the season. But I mean, when you look at the 4 teams, though, if you analyze them, if I analyze them, Infinity would to me be that rush down, get in your face, mess you up kind of team. They had no problem using their shotguns whatsoever. Look at the Insanes; they were all Lancer, pistol oriented, get wide angles, play smart, take their 3v2 smart, get wide, use their man to their advantage constantly. Then you had someone like Retaliation, who was a complete blend of both of those teams that did both, and Frag D, who in my opinion was, very rush heavy, but also a little bit Lancer oriented too. I'd say probably a little bit more rush heavy than, Lancer oriented. From my personal experience watching the 4 of those teams play, and it was just interesting because there was no team that was necessarily perfect. I mean, Infinity and Insanes were at the top, but they were both very different types of teams, and both things worked for them. When we looked into the newer games, did we really see that big of a, that rush down, gameplay? No, we saw much more rifle oriented. I feel like as we went up each game. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's just the way I see it.
Right. I'd agree with you, and this kind of goes into what you were talking about with that decision you have to make for, at the competitive play, hypothetically, who's going to fill the shotgun role? Who's going to fill the Lancer role? Where's the shotgun guy going? Is he going to go to the power weapon to try to fight up close over that with rifle support at his back? So, I mean, that metagame changes a lot, and, that's what kind of people, when I say adapt, I mean, you're not necessarily to the style or to what's happening. I mean, you guys can still complain, but if you're in game, change up your playstyle. You have to think differently when you're playing, especially for this. Now, in terms of people talking about like Gears 3, and this is why I said Gears 2, Gears 1, it was a little, well, Gears 1 specifically was different because there was no stopping power. Gears 2 and Gears 3 had stopping power, so freedom of movement was lost. Not to mention Gears of War 2 was slow as shit. I hate that game. Don't get me started on that game.
Best game ever.
But those were the things that I think people kind of, and if you're in the stream right now and you didn't play Gears 1, you have no idea what it's like with no stopping power. It's like a completely different game. So when you say the game is rifle heavy and you get annoyed by someone circle jerking you with the Lancer or the Hammer Burst or whatever, go back to Gears 1. Those people can't do that because you're not sitting there, like you have, what is Kenny like to say? Jelly on your...
Oh, yeah, you got jelly on your feet.
There's no pitch in your tents either. No camping. No sitting back all the time. You can't do that in Gears 1. You'll get smoked.
Yeah, so... I mean, Gears Judgment doesn't have stopping power, so if there's any correlation between 2 games I could make, Gears 1's speed and overall game flow feels similar, not the same. It feels similar to Gears 1 in that you can move around in shotgun, but the whole loadout system is what kind of changes it up, because if you have a shotgun, you have to commit, and you have to be, I guess, you have to know how to move around in order to not get hit by rifle players, at least good ones. So at the competitive level, it's going to be very interesting to see that play out.
Yeah.
But it's a new game. It's a new game, and those who really want to follow it, and you got Joe, you got Kenny, you got everyone who's going to be big on the competitive side. You're going to adapt, and you're going to figure out how to make it work. And you're not going to At least I know Joe won't. Or Kenny. They're not going to cry on Twitter for day after day about it.
In the past,
I
I'd
like
complain a little bit,
the
but
broken
I'm trying
record
to
over
do it as
here,
much.
but competitive so heavily relies on viewers that
Yeah.
that's really what's the important thing is. And like especially, you know, me for example, I put on an event. All of everything I could do was based on being able to get views from an event. So that's really what I'm concerned about, is being able to market Judgment as a viewable esport event.
Right.
Or just viewable in general.
If we accomplish that, if we're able to accomplish, you know,
Well-
making the game both entertaining and viewer friendly, I mean, then we're
One of the problems was that, I mean, Epic had stuff already in place, like that event calendar and stuff, and never really used it. And then it wasn't until the end that it was like, oh yeah, just hit us up and we'll add it. And then it was like, well, now it's too late.
Like, can you imagine if like something like, I don't know, like for example, like Hype 2 or something like that was, you know, if we had the resources to make an open event and that was advertised and people that we never even heard about or players we never even knew existed were able to show up to these events because they simply found out through the calendar and they just want to be a part of
Yeah,
it.
well, those are things that aren't even really a lot to ask of a developer now, because if you look at the games that are huge, like StarCraft and League, they advertise the shit out of everything. Why? Because more people are going to come to it now because of that.
Yeah, then more people are going to buy their game, more people are going to buy their DLC. I mean, as a business model, I just don't understand. I'm not saying Epic isn't trying. I mean, they've made massive leaps in trying to, you know, please the community. And in retrospect, they're never going to fully please the community, no matter what they do. You know, it doesn't really matter. It's impossible. There's no way that every single Gears player on this planet, no matter who says what Epic should do or what Epic does, is going to, you know, be pleased. It's impossible.
Yeah.
No, that's not going to happen, especially because Judgment is so much change. And there's always that big chunk of players who are just dedicated to the old ways. They hate change. That's why people were saying before, when Arctic was saying, can we have the old school button layout as an option? It's like, come on, dude. No, you can't.
It's like, is it that big of a deal that you really need the classic control scheme?
People are like that. They just hate change in any aspect of life. They hate change.
But some people just might be like a different kind of player. I mean, in regards to button layouts, all I know is we have this new layout and we have alternate. But take like, not trying to compare us to many other games, the one game that comes to my mind that at least somewhat affects me, like when I play Halo, I play on a really weird button layout. I play on Boxer. I don't really hear about anybody that plays that. People play like Jumper or, you know, Default or
I play
whatever.
Southpaw Boxer.
Okay, so you play something different too. But like just having, it's not that you need the option, but somebody might be left-handed or play the game a different way, you know, than what you're accustomed to or what the, you know, what the industry is accustomed to. So just having the option there is, you know, awesome, just so that you can at least try it, you know, or at least having the option to customize your control scheme if maybe you just want to simply switch one button or two around. Like, I don't know if that's possible. I brought it up before. I've heard Quinn say that, you know, it's not that easy to do, et cetera, et cetera. So if that's the case, I understand that. But just, you never know. People might play on just different types of settings where they might be more accustomed to have that. You know? Some people would probably love that. It would just be awesome, in my opinion.
While they're hitting the D-pad to try to take out something and they mess up, it'll be on them.
True.
That's not happening to me anymore.
Just saying, the Y button sounds awesome. But then again, I haven't even played on this new control scheme. So, I mean, maybe I'll think it's, you know, Jesus Christ. No, I haven't touched it yet. I can't give that, you know, answer, unfortunately.
So to be fair, I think anything a developer can do to make a game more customizable creates a better user experience.
Yeah, I agree.
100%.
Zappa says something that I kind of agree with this, just because of, again, that getting used to change. A lot of people are going to play this game because it's going to come out in a period where there's no AAA titles coming out. And it might last longer than 2 months because you're looking at next season, November, whenever.
It's hitting the summer point.
So you're going to have at least a good 6 months of a lot of people playing Gears Judgment, which I think their release date that they picked is pretty good. But in terms of the fall off, again, to me, and this is what fatalstryke mentioned early on, is that if the matchmaking isn't there and you have new players that are just coming or, you know, that played Gears 3. I remember Gears 3 was hyped as shit. And then about 2 months later, I remember I was making my...
Getting thrown to the wolves.
Yeah, I mean, it's like...
That was the problem.
You're playing against a group of people that want their game to grow, but you know, they're playing against people that they're smashing on constantly, and it's like, yeah, you're an all-star dude, but if you want to play competitive, like, I mean, something has to give. Like, matchmaking has to be improved, or playlist separation. I don't know what's gonna help it. Yeah, something needs to be implemented for that learning curve to kind of set in, because a lot of people, regardless of what people are saying right now, like, I'm not gonna get it because the down and not out. I hate to break this to you. A lot of you guys don't like this. I hate admitting it sometimes. We are in the vast minority. We are so small. We are so small that if 500 of you guys, or 1,000 or 2,000 don't buy the game, there's still 6 million people that are going to buy it. Okay, so it doesn't really matter. Honestly, it doesn't matter. So I'm glad that I get to provide input. I'm glad that Epic was like, hey, you know, we want you guys to come help out. It's just like, there's not that. Trust me, Strife, I'm not wrong. I am not wrong. Believe me, I am not wrong, dude.
So tiny.
We are not. I promise you. I'm saying this I'm not trying to be a jackass. I'm saying this very sincere. We are a vast minority. Even all the people that post on the forums, that is a vast minority of the people that play and bot the game.
I'm going to go ahead and play devil's advocate here. Gamers are competitive.
I believe that.
Have a good competitively balanced game that's good for, you know, circuit play, competitive play. Like, look at League of Legends.
League of Legends? Yeah, I knew you were going to say that.
And you know what? It also has, it's the biggest fan base ever. Not everyone goes to play on a circuit, but because it's so well competitively balanced.
Yeah,
well, part of that is...
You got that, you got Riot.
Yeah, I was going to say, part of that is like Riot is like shoving it down everybody's throat.
Yeah,
so it's like, it's a good thing, but that's like, part of it is like Riot is really pushing, and the accessibility of it is like, you can pick up and play, although I don't particularly like League, you can pick up and play, and the matchmaking in it is good enough so that you're not like getting shit on constantly like you would in most shooters.
I only play normal matches because ranked is for losers. But that's besides the
Well,
point.
And I see everyone like blowing him in the chat saying that,
Someone has said that it's free too. It's free. It's
yeah,
free.
Sure. And that makes it accessible, but I'm not talking about the accessibility of the game, I'm talking about competitive balance.
Yeah.
I keep saying, you know,
They do a very good job with that.
competitive
still
players
buy if
are,
it was
you know,
even-
limited. I'm saying everyone's a competitive player.
Even Gears has the potential to have that. Like, yeah, we might be a small, you know, little competitive community right now, and eventually, if Epic, you know, does give us the, you know, the things that we need, maybe we'll snowball into something that slowly gets bigger over time. Maybe not on this game fully, but maybe on the time by the next one happens, we'll start to blow up at least a little bit. I know consoles are insignificant, obviously, compared to the viewer audience of PC, but, I mean, the big thing is you have to look at is, besides us, our competitive scene, what about all the kids that are just the hardcore ranked players that will never ever go to an event, but will play GB nonstop extensively and just try to find something competitive in Gears? What if we have a matchmaking system for them that groups players properly so that new players are able to play with newcoming players, and, you know, the more old school or hardcore, I guess you could say, players are going to be matched up against themselves? I've said it twice. I said it on Active Reload, and now I just don't understand why we don't have two different types of ranks. An experience rank, so even new players aren't discouraged, and a true skill type of rank, not saying it has to be true skill, but something based on your win-loss ratio, or at least how good you do individually, that helps rank you up the proper way, to give people somewhat of an incentive to actually want to play this video game for more than just a couple months. I don't know what you guys think about that, but that's just how I view the whole thing.
Yeah. Fletcher actually made a really good point, and I asked Quinn about this. I just kind of openly said, you know, Gears 3 DLC support for me wasn't very good. And I don't know if I worded it like that. Like, they just dropped off the face of the earth with the game, and now it's just, you know, running on whatever, the dedicated servers, and they haven't really paid too much attention to it other than Pete changing the playlist. My concern with Judgment is basically the same thing. Are we going to be looking at 6 months from now, little to no support for the game? Well, 6 months from now, 6 months from when the game comes out, are they just going to drop it like a bad habit and focus on the next new project for the next new console or whatever? That's like a very, very major concern of mine for Judgment, and quite frankly, and that's one of the things that I think factors into the competitive scene, is whether or not they're for it. Stream went down. Motherfuck.
Yeah, I don't know what they did with that. I mean, they had a lot of setups that were broken. I mean, you had different playlists for each DLC, and it was all over the place. You had this to play that, or this one to play this, and then you had who didn't want to buy anything, wanted to play with that stupid no DLC playlist, which was terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, there was so much segregation in Gears 3 that it was a little ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. That's something that it's another big concern of mine is what their support is going to look like after the game comes out, because I don't know what the next system is going to look like. I don't know the day. Some people are saying it's going to be holiday season next year. So I mean, Microsoft might make one big huge push, because you got to remember Microsoft is the publisher for Gears of War. You know, they might make one big marketing push for that game for the 6 months, and then they're going to be right on to the new system, and then, you know, fuck Gears of War Judgment. That's how I feel. That's what I feel like is going to play out. And so, whether or not, you know, people want to admit it, the lifespan of this game is not looking fantastic anyway because of the timing of the new systems. And that's just my honest opinion.
That's the case. No, go ahead, Kenny, go first.
I'm just hoping it's not the case, you know. I'm hoping that's not the case, because they're doing those things to balance the game and finally make it gear like, you know, like I've honestly